This is our table saw, and we also have a table saw over there. This table saw has a rip fence on, is what we call it. That one has a sliding crosscut table. We'll explain both, or I'll explain both of those as we go through, but I'm going to start with this one, which is for making what we call rip cuts. A rip cut means we're cutting with the direction of the grain, like this. If we're doing a cross cut this direction, that means we are going across the grain. And that will be done over on the sliding table saw over there. Now, a few things you need to understand about this machine before we even get to using it is first, how to adjust the blade height. So if I were to lift this guard up, which under normal circumstances, this guard should always be in place when you're operating the machine. Okay, as we lift it up, you can see that here's a blade that will make the cut. We want to make sure that blade is about 1/4 of an inch above our workpiece. So we just put our board over against it, and we look at it and we say, okay, is that 1/4 of an inch? What do you think? Say, yeah? I'd say it's a little bit high. It's not way bad. But if that thing's sticking way up above here, then there's more blade up above your board that creates a hazard, potentially cutting fingers if they get caught in it. Okay? So the height of the blade is important to keep at about 1/4 of an inch. You don't need to get a tape measure and measure it. Just kind of get used to about 1/4 of an inch above your board. To adjust that, we come to this front wheel right here. There's a center locking knob. Those of you that can't see will make sure you get where you can see. Always loosen that center locking knob before you crank the wheel. If you don't, it's going to cause damage to the mechanism in there that raises and lowers the blade. So now I've loosened it. I can crank this. As you can see by going that direction, I have raised the blade really high now. Much higher than I would ever want when I'm cutting. So I'm going to go the opposite direction now and drop that back down to about 1/4 of an inch. This particular one actually has a column back here, and I'll talk about those in a second. So just a little high, about like that right there. Once you've finished setting your height, make sure you then again lock the locking knob, which is in the center of the wheel down. That way it doesn't vibrate on you and either raise or lower a little bit while you're cutting. Okay? So that sets our height. The other wheel over here on the side, again, we would loosen the center locking knob, but when we crank it, it actually tilts the blade at an angle, which for most of what you're going to be doing in the basic woodworking class, you won't need to tilt it. But there are specialty operations we'll do, particularly when we get an advanced class, that will do angle cuts. So the side wheel adjusts the same way. We loosen the center knob, crank the wheel, then tilt it, crank it the other way, bring it back to 0 so that it's straight up and down. Now these two spring-loaded deals in the back here are called kickback protectors. Does anybody know what a kickback is on a table saw? Has anyone heard of that? New term for all of you? Well, we're going to explain it to you. We have a blade here that's spinning very high rate of speed. It's actually a 5-horsepower motor in there, so it's got a lot of power behind it. When your board's being fed through here, which would be between the fence right there and the blade, if it binds up or you let go of it or something like that happens, then the board, because of the force of that blade, can come flying backwards at it, or kickback. Okay? Well, to help avoid a kickback, they've installed these in there that as your board goes in and you go backwards, it's supposed to dig in and stop it from coming back. But as you can see, it's not really catching this one to stop it from coming back. They do help, but you don't want to rely on those to prevent a kickback. The best thing you can do to prevent a kickback is follow these 3 rules. Now, I'm going to slide this fence over a little closer. Okay. Now, you guys all have a board. You jointed the edge of it. Some of you jointed both edges of it, which isn't totally necessary, but for practice was fine. But you have a jointed edge now. Your board needs to go in so the jointed edge is kept tight against the fence. Okay, I'm going to stand back over on this side. So we always cut from the left side of the blade. So the first step in preventing one of those kickbacks is keeping your jointed edge tight against the fence. If you put your rough edge up against the fence, you'll then cut off your nice clean straight edge, plus the rough edge isn't going to be even, and then we end up with a narrower board than our plans specify. So the number one thing to prevent a kickback, keep your board tight against the fence. And I do that by keeping my finger right there, pushing it towards the fence. And then the second thing you do is keep your board flat on the table. Don't let it raise up at all like this. Keep it flat on the table. So I put my hand right there, fingers keeping it against the fence, and the thumb's holding it down. And those are the first two things. The third thing is, make sure you do not release or let go of your board until you have pushed it all the way through past the back of the blade, and I even say off the back of the metal table. So as I'm holding it down and in right here, I'm feeding through. I don't stop and let go any point right here because it's still between the blade and the fence. You keep pushing that through to right there, and then you just push it like that so it's clear of the blade. Those three things will prevent a kickback. If you always make sure it's tight against the fence, flat on the table, and you push it all the way through past the back of the blade, even give it a little push out onto that extension table, it'll prevent a kickback. But if you don't do all three of those, then your risk of a kickback is increased. All right. Now, adjusting our fence here, as you just saw me do, this lever right here, of course, up releases the locking mechanism on it, so that we can then slide side to side here. Clamping down locks it into place. Now, if you come a little bit closer, you can see right here the measurement scale, and there's a red line on it here. We set that whatever that line is set on is the distance between the fence and the blade right here. Okay, so if right now it's at 9, I'm going to bring it down a little less, say like 5.5, and then lock that down. So now my jointed edge would go against the fence, and as I cut my board, it would cut it exactly 5.5 inches wide, provided I keep it flat on the table, tight against the fence, and feed it all the way through. Okay? Now this particular board is actually a little less than that, so it wouldn't cut it. But this guard would be down, make sure your board goes under the guard. And sometimes if you're just cutting a little bit off, the guard will push to the side instead of going on top of your workpiece. And just lift it up so it's on top. Keep it down, thumb on the back, arched, fingers, and then just go right out through, pushing through just like that. Now that's a rip cut. I would not ever come over here and try to do a cross cut this direction. The reason for that is we do not have much surface area riding on the fence. And without the surface area on the fence, this board then becomes easy to twist or tweak, and that causes a binding in the blade, and that board will kick back. Almost guarantee it's going to. You came over and tried to run one through like that. So that's where we go over to the sliding table saw to do our cross cut. We'll show you that in a minute. Okay, if your board is ever less than 4 inches, 3 3/4, 2.5, whatever. Always make sure you've got this push stick right here ready to go so that you can use this on the narrower pieces so your fingers are not down in near the blade. So this is sitting there ready to go. This would be 2.5 right there. You can see my hand going through there will be much too close to that blade and would endanger cutting a finger off. So we put our board right here, we feed it in, holding it with our left hand, and then pick up the push stick, and we use the push stick like that to take it out through to make a cut, so that we can do the narrows. 4 inches or less, always use a push stick. Okay. And there's different styles of push sticks. This is the one I have here right now. There's some just kind of long, slender handheld ones you can use, but this one works good for most everything we're going to do. But always make sure you put them back here. Sometimes students will be sitting over there and then someone comes and starts a cut and then there's not a push stick handy, and then they're trying to find a push stick in the middle of a cut. So don't do that. Always make sure you put it back, and then before you start your cut, always check to see the push stick is ready to go. So it's there handy, easy to pick up. Okay? There's our 5-minute bell. So we'll have to finish the upcut saw next time. I want to talk about this switch where we turn it on and off quickly. The main switch right here, which has the on-off, which is a small little switch, that just turns the power on to the machine. So So right now it's going to run through a check, and I have a red light telling me that something is not right. It could be a door's open to the machine, but for some reason it is not letting the power get ready to turn the machine on. So I got to check the doors. That one appears to be closed. And looks like that one's closed. So I don't see what's keeping it from coming on right now, so I'll have a little check on it. But we'll go through this next time. I'll make sure it's working, and we'll do a cut, and we'll merge the videos together. Good?